I am Harper Hayes, a 22-year-old who once accepted humiliation as an unavoidable consequence of residing in another's home. This conviction dissolved during my father's 60th birthday celebration, held in our backyard, where 35 guests observed with expectant grins, as if awaiting a comedic climax. I had been awake since 5 that morning, diligently completing a lengthy roster of tasks I hadn't authored, but inexplicably always bore responsibility for: arranging seating, cleaning surfaces, and striving for flawless presentation to prevent his potential outburst. For several months, I had carefully saved for a modest present, the type 1 purchases to convey affection when financial resources are insufficient for a grand gesture. As gift-giving commenced, I approached him and put the item into his hands, yearning for a single, ordinary interaction. He offered no smile. His gaze failed to convey the paternal affection one expects. Instead, he lifted my offering with 2 fingers, as if it were contaminated. His voice then resonated across the yard, piercingly loud, halting all ongoing discussions. He declared it worthless. He dismissed it as junk. Before my mind could fully register the moment, his open hand struck my face with such force that my vision temporarily turned white. A gasp reached my ears. What followed was even more distressing: a brief burst of laughter, feigning normalcy. From my peripheral vision, I noticed my sister's phone aimed directly at me, recording my complete degradation as if my shame were mere entertainment for her audience. My cheeks stung, my throat constricted, and I grasped that the incident wasn't about the present itself. It was a stark reaffirmation of my subordinate status within that household. I neither screamed nor pleaded. I simply turned and departed, understanding that remaining would have subjected me to their observation as I shattered. That evening, clutching a backpack and trembling with each breath, I fled, vowing to sleep anywhere rather than return. I mistakenly believed the ordeal's most severe chapter had concluded. Several hours later, a dark SUV pulled up next to me. A man seized my arm, pushing me into the rear seat with such swiftness that I genuinely thought I was being abducted. Subsequently, the man seated in the shadows met my gaze and uttered 5 words that completely upended my existence. I am your biological father. Before I proceed with the unfolding events, please like and subscribe if you've ever experienced invisibility within your own family, and share your location in the comments so I feel less isolated in this journey. For a brief moment after his declaration, I was unable to comprehend its implications. My initial reaction was sheer terror. My hand immediately reached for the door handle, my heart pounding so fiercely it seemed capable of fracturing my ribs. The door remained shut. The driver instantly observed this and pressed a button on the control panel. "It's unlocked," he stated calmly. "You're not confined." The vehicle decelerated, coming to a stop by the roadside beneath a faint street lamp. My fingers lingered near the handle, yet I remained still. My breathing was rapid, my mind struggling to process the events of the preceding 10 minutes. The blow, the crowded backyard, fleeing down the dark pavement with tears obscuring the streetlights, and now this unknown individual making an improbable assertion. The man opposite me shifted slightly forward, allowing the dashboard's dim glow to illuminate his features. He appeared anxious, like someone anticipating a perilous step. "My name is Ethan Davies," he murmured. "And I have been attempting to locate you for 19 years. I gazed intently at him, scrutinizing his face for any recognizable trait that might confirm his sanity. I didn't immediately perceive anything. He simply appeared as a weary man in his 50s, with prominent worry lines etched deeply around his eyes. Then, he deliberately reached into his jacket's inner pocket and produced a photograph. "Before you conclude I am deranged," he stated, extending it cautiously. "Kindly examine this." I paused, yet curiosity ultimately overcame my apprehension. I accepted the photograph. It was aged, with edges somewhat discolored. At its center stood a youthful woman, smiling towards the camera, her hair gently swept across her face by the breeze. Beside her, a tall man had his arm around her shoulders. Cradled between them in the woman's embrace was an infant bundled in a plush blanket. My stomach clenched before my mind could process the reason. The infant possessed the same dark hair I had observed in every reflection my whole life, along with the identical slightly crooked eyebrow. I slowly raised my gaze to meet his. "That is my wife," he softly offered. "And that baby is you." My mouth became parched. "That's not possible," I murmured. For 22 years, I had embraced a single narrative of my existence. I understood my parentage and my origins. Even though they regarded me as an imposition, they were still my family, weren't they? Caleb did not dispute this. He merely nodded, as if my reaction was anticipated. Seated next to him in the rear of the vehicle was a woman in a dark blazer who had remained silent until this moment. She presented a slight, professional smile. "My name is Erin Caldwell," she announced. "I am an attorney. I represent Mr. Whitman." That solitary statement caused my chest to constrict further. Attorneys typically don't appear in the middle of the night unless a significant matter is unfolding. Caleb briefly looked at the driver, then back at me. "Our intention wasn't to frighten you," he explained. "You were positioned too near the road, and a vehicle almost struck you. My driver pulled you inside, fearing you might be hit." I recalled the indistinct rush of headlights just before the SUV halted. Perhaps that detail was accurate. Perhaps I hadn't been abducted after all. However, the more significant question lingered unresolved between us. "Why now?" I inquired, my voice scarcely stable. "If you are indeed who you claim to be, where have you been throughout my entire life?" Caleb cast his gaze upon his hands momentarily before responding. "Confined to a hospital bed for months," he stated softly. "And subsequent to that, battling legal documents that declared you were no longer my daughter." His words lacked immediate coherence. "Not yet." My mind kept dwelling on that photograph, on the infant bearing my exact likeness. Erin tilted forward slightly and set a slim manila folder on the seat separating us. "We have been investigating this matter for more than a year," she informed me. "It began when Mr. Whitman uncovered evidence suggesting the custody transfer documents, following your mother's accident, might not have been legally valid." Accident. The term struck me heavily. I had always been informed my biological mother passed away during my infancy. Her death was consistently portrayed as tragic but remote, akin to a narrative from another's life. Now, it abruptly felt intensely personal, too personal. I shifted my gaze from the folder back to Caleb. "Why would someone falsify such a thing?" I inquired deliberately. He didn't immediately reply. His eyes briefly darted towards my backpack, resting on the floor by my feet. "That," he softly stated, "is precisely what we hope you can assist us in understanding." My eyes followed his, and I noticed my bag zipper had partially opened when I was brought into the vehicle. The corner of an old, creased envelope protruded. It was the identical envelope I had picked up earlier that night while clearing out the garage. At the moment, I hadn't known why I retained it. There was simply something unsettling about it. Now, seated in the back of that SUV with an unknown man asserting paternity, an odd sensation arose that the solution to all mysteries might already be within my grasp. My fingers grew numb as I retrieved the envelope from my backpack. It was heavily creased, as if repeatedly folded and unfolded. It was the sort of paper that had languished too long in a drawer, a repository for forgotten secrets. I hadn't intended to take it at all. Earlier that evening, prior to the party, I had been compelled to tidy the garage to create space, as my dad wished to accommodate something better. His term for unnecessary purchases he made for himself. I was pulling outdated boxes towards the refuse bin when I spotted the envelope wedged behind a paint can. It lacked a return address, bearing only a printed label with my incorrect name and the house's street address. A strange discomfort, a twisting sensation in my stomach, arose from seeing my name on something I had never been permitted to handle, so I quickly slipped it into my bag before anyone could observe. Now, I placed it on my lap in the SUV's backseat, treating it like a live electrical wire. Caleb observed me attentively, neither hurrying nor making demands. Erin's demeanor subtly shifted, as if she recognized the paper's form even before I unfolded it. "Proceed," she gently encouraged. "If my suspicion is correct, its contents are significant." I gulped and ripped open the edge. Inside were multiple sheets, varying in age, all printed in that formal government typeface that causes a visceral reaction even before a single word is read. The initial page displayed bold numbers and a heading that momentarily paralyzed my thoughts: Adoption Assistance, Federal and State Benefits. A subsequent page featured a distinct header: Tax Credit Documentation, Claim Dependents, Filing Years, Amounts. I focused on the total figures, a lump forming in my throat. I didn't grasp every detail, but I comprehended enough. There were annual entries, consistently listed, spanning almost 20 years, each accompanied by monetary values. Thousands, with some years showing greater sums than others. I looked up, my voice trembling with incredulity. "What is this?" Erin responded without hesitation. "It's a trail," she stated. "A financial trail." Caleb's jaw clenched, as if he were suppressing long-held anger. Erin indicated a section near the bottom. "This suggests your adoptive family received subsidy payments for your upbringing," she clarified, maintaining a calm, almost detached tone. "And these documents imply they also claimed substantial tax credits and dependent benefits. If these submissions were fraudulent, it transcends a mere family matter. It becomes a legal concern." Legal issue. The phrase felt inadequate for the turmoil I experienced. My hands began to tremor, not from chill, but from the nauseating truth dawning within my chest. "They received payment for me," I questioned. The query emerged faintly, reminiscent of a child posing an evident point. Caleb slowly affirmed. "Should these documents prove accurate," he replied, "then yes. Your presence in that home provided them with financial advantages." My stomach churned. I reflected on being treated like a domestic employee. I recalled being denied a driver's license, with the reasoning that you don't need to go anywhere. I remembered being instructed to purchase my own school supplies with tip money, which I secreted in my shoe as it was the sole possession I felt was truly mine. I recalled birthdays where I received a card devoid of cash, while my sister unwrapped costly electronics. I remembered pleading for a dental appointment when a toothache was so severe it prevented sleep, only to be dismissed as dramatic. For all those years, I had attributed my treatment to my inadequacy, my perceived difficulty, or some inherent flaw. Yet these papers revealed a different, more chilling narrative, one where my suffering was not coincidental, but rather a source of profit. Erin took a single sheet and tapped a specific line with her fingernail. "This is particularly significant," she noted. "Such documentation doesn't simply materialize. An application had to be submitted. Recertification was required. Someone had to ensure your continued listing annually." Caleb leaned nearer, his voice hushed. "Avery," he began, "we came tonight for an additional reason. We didn't merely discover these forms." He hesitated, as if dreading the subsequent disclosure. "We uncovered evidence that the signature on the document that divested me of my parental rights was not authentic." My breath hitched. "What do you mean it wasn't yours?" Erin opened the manila folder she had set on the seat and extracted a photocopy of a legal document. At its base was a signature line, with the name Caleb Whitman neatly printed underneath. Initially, it appeared genuine, but then Erin produced a second page, a side-by-side analysis from a forensic handwriting expert. Red circles highlighted the discrepancies, variations in slant, pressure, letter shape, and inconsistent patterns. "This is a preliminary analysis," Erin stated, "but it strongly indicates a forgery." Caleb's eyes now appeared glazed, yet his voice remained unwavering. "Following your mother's death," he quietly recounted, "I sustained severe injuries. I underwent multiple surgeries and was unable to even stand independently. During that period, trusted individuals, members of our church who offered assistance, managed the paperwork." He swallowed with difficulty. "Amidst that turmoil, someone affixed my signature to a document stating that I relinquished you." My skin tingled. The disparate elements coalesced in my mind, inducing a sense of nausea. The church affiliation. My adoptive parents' consistent portrayal as community stalwarts. The universal praise they received as altruistic saints for raising a child. My dad's evident delight in being hailed a hero. "So you're saying," I whispered, "they didn't simply adopt me. Erin met my gaze. We believe they obtained custody through fraudulent means, she explained. And if so, the financial gains they accumulated could be deemed part of that deceit. I lowered my eyes again to the envelope on my lap, bearing my incorrect name, my existence distilled into figures and documents. Suddenly, the slap at the party no longer seemed an arbitrary outburst. It felt like a recurring motif: control, degradation, and keeping me diminished to prevent inquiry, to stop me from looking behind paint cans in the garage and uncovering the truth. My voice emerged with more sharpness than anticipated. Why retain the documents? I queried. If their actions were illicit, why wouldn't they destroy them? Erin's lips compressed into a thin line. Individuals who consider themselves beyond reproach often keep mementos, she observed. And those who cultivate an image of virtue sometimes perceive paperwork as a safeguard. They don't anticipate that the person they are exploiting will ever discover it. Caleb observed me, his expression a mixture of grief and optimism. You are not obligated to make any decisions tonight, he assured me. You are free to depart. You can instruct us to leave you be. I will not impose myself into your life. I stared at him for an extended period. The concept of possessing a choice felt foreign, almost unsettling. In my adoptive household, options were merely punitive measures cloaked as alternatives. Do this or else. Return or else. Smile or else. Yet here, amidst the SUV's soft hum, a different realization struck me. If Caleb's account was accurate, then those who raised me were not merely harsh, they were criminals. And for the first time in my existence, my thoughts weren't consumed by survival, but by strategizing their exposure. We did not proceed to a police station that night. Erin offered an initial statement that surprised me. We can certainly report this, she clarified, but your safety is paramount. The immediate priority tonight is to bring you to a secure location and then verify the truth beyond any possibility of manipulation. Her emphasis on twist revealed her prior experience with individuals akin to my adoptive parents, those capable of public affability while privately causing devastation. Caleb did not dispute her, nor did I by the time we arrived in downtown Salt Lake City. My body was operating on a combination of profound exhaustion and adrenaline. Through the window, the urban lights appeared surreal, resembling an alternate reality I wasn't certain I was permitted to access. The SUV entered a brightly illuminated hotel entrance, complete with surveillance cameras above the doors. A uniformed security guard acknowledged the driver, as if their arrival was anticipated. Erin entered first, surveyed the lobby, then signaled for me to follow. Subtle observations caused a slight easing in my chest. The reception staff was unfamiliar with my adoptive father. No one here regarded me as if I were indebted to them. No one issued sharp commands. No one instructed me to improve my posture or cease causing a commotion. Erin registered us under her name, then gave me a key card. You'll be on our floor, she explained. Should you require anything, simply knock. If you hear anything unsettling, lock your door and contact me. While this sounded like standard safety advice, to me it felt as though someone was at last acknowledging my fears. The room was silent. Initially, it was excessively quiet. My entire life had been punctuated by the sound of others' footsteps approaching to find me. Here, the only sounds were the gentle whir of the heater and the faint traffic outside. Upon entering, I found the curtains open and immediately froze. An expansive window dominated one wall, revealing the distant, dark silhouette of the Wasatch Range bathed in a pale streak of moonlight. I couldn't pinpoint why this impacted me so profoundly. Perhaps it was because my basement room back home had no window, only concrete and a small vent emitting the scent of laundry detergent and dust. I let my backpack fall to the floor and remained standing, as if unsure how to navigate newfound freedom. Caleb stayed close to the door, allowing me ample personal space. He did not rush me as if attempting to assert ownership. He refrained from using endearments or trying to embrace me. He simply surveyed the room as though confirming its reality, then softly placed a photo album on the table. These are yours, should you desire them, he offered. Otherwise, I will store them. I perched on the bed's edge, the mattress yielding softly beneath my weight. It felt undeserved, as though I wasn't worthy of such comfort. My cheek continued to throb from the slap, and a light touch confirmed the lingering warmth, irrefutable evidence of the incident. Proof. The word echoed in my mind. The slap served as proof. The envelope served as proof. Yet, the most crucial piece of evidence remained absent. The one thing that would silence accusations of my being dramatic. I want a DNA test, I declared abruptly. My voice held more composure than I felt internally. As soon as it can be arranged tomorrow morning. Erin nodded immediately. It's already arranged, she confirmed. There's a Quest Diagnostics Collection Center located a few blocks from here. They open early, will ensure proper chain of custody certified results, the kind that withstand scrutiny. Caleb's eyes briefly conveyed relief, but he refrained from outward celebration. He merely nodded, as if prioritizing respect for my decision over personal reassurance. Whatever you require, he stated. That night, I managed little sleep. Each time I closed my eyes, I envisioned my sister's phone aimed at my face, heard the laughter, and felt the sharp sting on my cheek. Then, the photograph of the infant and the woman smiling into the wind resurfaced in my memory. A distinct anguish emerged within my chest, sorrow for a mother I never had the opportunity to know, and rage towards those who robbed me of that possibility. When morning eventually arrived, the sky was a bleak gray. Erin met me in the lobby, carrying coffee and a small paper bag containing breakfast I doubted I could consume. Caleb walked alongside me without physical contact, seemingly fearful that any misstep might cause me to flee. At the laboratory, the fluorescent illumination was stark, the air carried the scent of sanitizer, and the waiting area was filled with individuals absorbed in their phones. For them, it was a customary appointment. For me, it represented a judgment. The technician requested my identification, and my stomach sank. I possessed none. No driver's license, no state ID. My adoptive parents had consistently managed such matters. Erin intervened deftly, providing documentation and clarifying the circumstances in precise legal terminology. The technician nodded, placed a few calls, and ultimately accepted alternative forms of verification. Minutes later, I was seated in a compact room as a swab was gently rubbed along the inside of my cheek. It was simple, swift, almost demeaning that such a minor procedure could determine something so monumental. Caleb also underwent his swabbing. His hands were steady, his eyes fixed on a spot on the wall, as if he found it unbearable to observe. Erin carefully sealed everything within tamper-proof packaging, and he signed the required papers while the lab technician observed. This is solid, Erin assured me as we exited. No one can dispute its authenticity. Back at the hotel, the waiting itself became a form of torment. Erin mentioned that expedited results might arrive within a day. A single day felt like an eternity. I attempted to eat, but my stomach rebelled. My thoughts kept returning to retrieving my belongings, then I'd remember that my possessions weren't worth re-entering that house alone. Caleb didn't force conversation. He merely sat in the window-side chair, the album shut in his lap, as if cradling something fragile. Eventually, I voiced the question that had been simmering beneath everything else. If you've been searching for me, I began, why didn't you discover me sooner? Caleb let out a slow breath. Because each time I got close, he explained, the trail grew cold. Different addresses, various school records, and people who would smile and promise assistance, only to never return my calls. He then looked at me, and the depth of feeling in his gaze made my throat tight. But I never quit. That afternoon, Erin's phone vibrated. She stepped into the hallway to answer, then returned to the room holding a piece of paper. She offered no smile, no attempt to soften the news. She simply presented it to me, as if handing me back my own identity. My eyes scanned the bold figures at the bottom. Probability of paternity, 99, 999%. A hush fell over the room. My hands began trembling so violently that the paper rustled. I met Caleb's gaze, and for the first time, I truly saw him. It wasn't just his eyes, but the distinct line of his jaw, the subtle shift of his brow as he fought back tears. My voice emerged as a mere whisper. It's you. Caleb didn't rush to embrace me. He didn't deliver grand pronouncements. He simply gave a single nod, as if the truth was both the finest and most painful gift he had ever received. "It is me," he confirmed. In that instant, something deep within me shifted. For 19 years, I had been regarded as an unwelcome obligation, a burden someone grudgingly bore. Now I grasped the true narrative. I hadn't been unwanted. I had been taken. Erin didn't allow the shock to linger. Not due to a lack of compassion, but because she understood something I was just beginning to comprehend. Unprotected truth can still leave you exposed. The moment the DNA confirmed Caleb as my biological father, she transitioned into a strategic mindset. Her first request wasn't for a dramatic statement, but for a simple chronology. When the party began, when the slap occurred, when I departed the house, when the SUV stopped. She meticulously documented every detail, then looked up at me. "We're going to construct this case correctly," she declared. "It will be precise, substantiated, and impossible to dismiss." That statement resonated with me. My entire life, I had been dismissed by others. Too sensitive, overly dramatic, prone to misinterpreting things. Erin wasn't interested in opinions. She demanded proof. Within a few hours, the hotel room transformed into a focused planning area. Documents from the envelope were spread across the desk as Erin made a series of calm, methodical phone calls. She requested certified records, contacted a forensic handwriting expert, and reached out to a tax specialist who could interpret the financial documents in a way that would be credible to a judge. Caleb remained close by, observing in silence, like someone fearful that a single misstep could cause everything to vanish. At one point, Erin noticed me touching my cheek where the slap had landed. She inquired if she could photograph the mark for documentation. I agreed with a nod. For the first time, I didn't want that moment to fade. I wanted it preserved. Erin took the pictures under clear lighting and asked me to recount precisely what Derrick had said both before and after he struck me. She wrote down every word. Then she posed a question that made her pause. "Was anyone else recording besides your sister?" I informed her the slap had occurred during a TikTok live stream. Erin's expression instantly sharpened. "Live means witnesses," she stated. "Live means timestamps." Within minutes, she drafted a request to preserve the video and had me search online for clips that had already been reposted. We discovered several. I began reading the comments and felt my stomach clench, but Erin gently intervened. "Let me handle that part," she advised. Later that evening, she inquired about my personal documents. Birth certificate, social security card, ID, I possessed none of them. My adoptive parents had always claimed they kept them secure. Erin nodded as if that answer was anticipated. "Then we'll formally request them," she said. "If they refuse, that also becomes evidence." Not long after, my phone illuminated with a message from Derrick. He didn't use my actual name. "Where are you, Josie? You embarrassed me. Come home now." I stared at the screen as the next message appeared. "If you don't come back, don't call this family yours." Erin extended her hand, and I handed her the phone. She took screenshots as Derrick continued to text. The tone shifted from anger to a feigned patience. "I forgive you. Come home and we'll talk." When I didn't reply, the threats resumed. "You have nothing without me. I can make this very hard for you." Erin calmly saved every message. "This reveals control and motive," she noted quietly. Then another text arrived from Brenda, asserting I was confused and needed to stop communicating with strangers. She even included an old childhood photograph of me smiling at their kitchen table, as if it proved they were loving parents. Erin stored that as well. "They're constructing their version of the story," she remarked. "We're constructing the truth." The following afternoon, a letter addressed to me arrived at the hotel. Derrick's handwriting was neat and precise, the tone almost courteous. He declared his love for me. He asserted I was making a mistake. He claimed Caleb was manipulating me. And at the very end, he subtly included a veiled threat. "If you persist with this, I'll reveal to everyone why you truly ran away." Erin placed the letter into a plastic sleeve, like evidence from a crime scene. "He's attempting to frighten you into silence," she explained, "because he understands that if you speak, everything will unravel." By evening, Caleb returned with information obtained from a private investigator, public records, financial connections, and a past link between Derek and a social worker involved in adoptions years prior. The more pieces we assembled, the clearer the pattern became. I looked at the growing pile of documents on the desk and felt a new sensation surge in my chest. Not fear, but power. Erin asked me one final time if I was certain. "Once we file," she stated, "this becomes public." I recalled the slap, the laughter, and Derek's threats arriving more swiftly than any apology. Then I looked at her and responded without hesitation. "I'm not going back. I want this in court." The morning of the court hearing didn't resemble a film. It felt like standing at the precipice of something stark and unalterable. Erin met me in the lobby, a slender binder tucked under her arm, radiating the kind of composure that only comes from thorough preparation. Caleb stood on my other side, hands in his coat pockets, not touching me, but simply present. As we entered the Salt Lake City courthouse, the atmosphere shifted. Everything echoed. Each footstep resonated louder than it should have, as if the building itself wanted you to grasp its gravity. Across the hallway, Derek Langford was already there, impeccably dressed in a crisp suit, smiling excessively broadly, shaking hands with people as if he were at a fundraising event instead of a hearing concerning my life. My stomach churned, but Erin leaned in and whispered, "Don't look at him. Look at me. Today isn't about his performance. It's about facts." In the courtroom, Derek's smile remained plastered to his face until he noticed the binder Erin placed on the table. Then it faltered. The judge entered, and Erin began with the most irrefutable evidence first. The DNA results, the words 99, 999%, landed like a decisive blow. Derek's attorney attempted to object, but Erin possessed the lab certification, the chain of custody, and the necessary signatures to quash it. Next came the handwriting analysis. Erin held up the old relinquishment document, followed by the forensic comparison, with red circles highlighting the inconsistencies. She didn't accuse, she demonstrated. Derek's jaw tensed. When it was his turn, he rose and spoke like a man convinced that charm could erase any wrongdoing. He labeled me troubled. He asserted I was ungrateful. He alleged I ran away because I didn't want rules. Then Erin played the clip from the birthday party. Not the entire video, just the precise moment his hand struck my face and the backyard fell silent. My sister's laughter could be heard in the background before she realized people were watching. Derek's face drained of color. Erin then presented the messages from my phone, the ones that oscillated from "come home now" to "I can make this very hard for you." She read them without emotion, which somehow made them even more damning. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing, and posed a straightforward question to Derek regarding the financial documents. Derek tried to deny everything, but Erin had the subsidy forms, the tax filings, and a sworn statement from a former caseworker who had agreed to testify about the payment that facilitated the paperwork. Derek's voice escalated, his self-control fracturing. He gestured at me and shouted the wrong name, the one he used to diminish me. "Josie." The judge cut him off sharply and admonished him to speak respectfully. For the first time in my life, Derek appeared fearful. Erin didn't smile. She simply opened her binder to the final tab and declared, "Your Honor, we are requesting this court to acknowledge that this adoption was obtained through fraudulent means and that the financial benefits were collected under false pretenses." Then she turned to me and gave a single nod. It was my moment to speak. As I stood, my knees threatened to buckle, but I kept my hands firmly pressed on the rail in front of me and directed my gaze at the judge, not at Derek. Erin had instructed me to state the truth as if I were reading a receipt. Simple, clear, without pleading, without feeling the need to justify my right to basic respect. So I described the windowless basement room, being 11 years old and scrubbing floors while my sister attended sleepovers, hiding tip money in my shoe because asking for lunch money sparked arguments. I spoke about the slap, not as an isolated incident of drama, but as part of a recurring pattern. Derek no longer bothered to conceal his actions because he believed I had nowhere else to go. Then I uttered the sentence that felt like severing a bond. My name is Harper Hayes, and I am finished answering to the name he used to control me. The courtroom fell silent in a way that felt distinctly different from that backyard. This silence carried weight. The judge asked Derek a few questions, and Derek attempted to talk his way out of it, as he always did, but the evidence was immune to his charm. In the weeks that followed, the court's rulings were delivered incrementally. Each one closed a door Derek had frequently slammed in my face. The fraudulent paperwork was referred for criminal review. Restitution was mandated for the benefits gathered under false pretenses. Liens were imposed, forcing his financial dealings into public view. His property business, which he flaunted as proof of his respected status, began to crumble under audits and legal expenses. The church board requested his resignation. Sponsors and clients vanished. The same people who once smiled at his parties stopped returning his calls. My sister's live video didn't disappear as she'd hoped. It was copied, reposted, and integrated into hundreds of reaction videos. And for the first time, the humiliation wasn't mine. It was theirs. I didn't celebrate as if it were an act of revenge. I felt relief. And then I experienced something even more unusual: space. A void in my chest where fear had once resided. Chloe departed town and secured a job that offered no public acclaim. Brenda attempted to send a message expressing forgiveness, but I did not reply. I was no longer constantly angry. I was learning about boundaries, and boundaries don't necessitate arguments. They demand decisions. I relocated to a small studio apartment in Capitol Hill, featuring a real window that allowed morning light to illuminate the walls. For the first week, I repeatedly forgot I was permitted to open the curtains. Caleb helped me acquire what I had never possessed: a state ID, a social security card, a bank account in my own name. I enrolled in GED classes at night, and during the day, I took an introductory course in graphic design because I desired a future that was truly mine, not one I had to earn for someone else. On Sundays, Caleb prepared dinner at the house that had once belonged to my mother. It had a red door and a porch swing that emitted a soft creak when the wind touched it. Sometimes we spoke about her. Sometimes we didn't. He never forced memories upon me. He simply made room for me, as a parent should. The lesson I derived from all of this is not that blood automatically constitutes a family, because it doesn't, and paperwork doesn't either. Family is the individual who waits 19 years and still appears, not to possess you, but to offer you a choice. It's the person who addresses you by your actual name, even when no one else ever bothered. If you have ever been made to feel like a burden by the people who were meant to protect you, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not a payment. You are not an inconvenience. You are not the role they assigned you. You merit safety, respect, and a life that feels authentically yours. And if this narrative resonated with you, share in the comments the name you wish to be known by and one boundary you are finally prepared to establish. Because sometimes the most potent form of revenge isn't retribution. It's evolving into someone they can no longer control. Thank you for listening. Honestly, what affected me most profoundly wasn't solely the slap at that birthday party. It was their long-standing effort to distort Avery's reality, as if her suffering was irrelevant as long as their public image remained flawless. To me, true vindication wasn't about shouting or retaliation. It was the truth emerging, supported by proof, clear boundaries, and the courage to walk away. Avery reclaiming her real name felt like the most impactful conclusion possible. Now, I'm curious, what would you have done in her situation the moment you uncovered the truth? And what is one boundary you wish you had established sooner with someone who didn't show you respect? Share your thoughts in the comments.